This is Chuck Huber, the voice of Android 17. You're listening to Anime Seekers. You better be, or I'm coming for you. Dragon of the Darkness, Flame!
Jedi Squadron is a podcast run by the Anime Secrets website. Check us out at animesecrets.org for more anime, video game, tokusatsu, and now Star Wars content. Remember to follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts today.
Hello, new Padawans, and welcome to the Jedi Squadron podcast. Here, you will be taking lessons in the many pieces of the Star Wars universe, whether it be the movies, animated series, video games, comics, and etc. This is your training into becoming a Star Wars fan as part of the Jedi Squadron. May your training go well, and may the Force be with you, young Padawans. What is going on, Star Wars Nation? This is the Jedi Squadron podcast presented by animesecrets.org, and I'm your host, Nathan and
And I'm Rizwan Merchant.
And today, we are going to be reviewing Tales of the Empire, the second installment in the Star Wars Tales of series. Not too long ago, we reviewed Tales of a Jedi, which revolved around some, three shorts about Count Dooku and 3 shorts about Ahsoka Tano. And today, we are taking a look at its second season, which premiered, fittingly enough, on May the 4th, 2024, we both watched it. I watched it. It was the beginning of a very eventful May the 4th for me, but I'm going to talk about that a bit more when Riz and I do the Phantom Menace, because I don't want to spoil any content for that one. But Riz knows exactly what I'm talking about.
Nathan is currently a Phantom Menace in my life because he got to do something I really want to do.
Yeah, exactly.
So, he is the new Phantom Menace. Just give him a red mask and give him a dual-bladed lightsaber, and we're good to go.
Yep, totally.
I'll be Obi-Wan Kenobi in that scenario.
That would be awesome.
But yeah, I do also want to mention Happy Revenge of the 5th, Nathan, because today is May 5th.
Revenge of the 5th.
Yep.
So, with all that being said, this time in Tales of the Empire, last time when, it took place during, sometimes during, an era before the prequel era, then it kind of tied in to the prequel era, all the way down to the, a little bit after the prequel era, but not quite to the original trilogy era. This era, we're getting a lot, as the title would tell you, we're getting a lot of episodes from, we start off in the prequel era, but it's mostly about during the dark times of the Empire. So we got 3 episodes. The first 3 revolve around Morgan Elsbeth, the Night Sister, who first appeared in season 2 of The Mandalorian and was a main antagonist in the Ahsoka series, which Riz and I covered in depth last year. And then the next 3 revolve around someone whose fate everyone has been dying to see, Barriss Offee. We'll talk about her in a little bit. But with that being said, let's start off with episode 1, The Path of Fear.
One thing I do want to note here, because one complaint I didn't mention about Tales of the Jedi that I do want to bring up here, because I think Tales of the Empire fixed it.
Yeah.
Tales of the Jedi, the episodes were not in order for each of the stories. So, we had Ahsoka episode, Dooku, Ahsoka, Dooku, Ahsoka. This time for Tales of the Empire, we go through the entire, chronological events for Morgan Elsbeth. Then we go through 3 episodes for Barriss. And I think that's a better way to do this in the future going forward.
Yeah. They should definitely do that. But with that being said, let's jump into episode 1, The Path of Fear. So this episode opens up during the Clone Wars. It's Separatist forces have invaded Dathomir, the Night Sister homeworld, Morgan Elsbeth and her people are trying to fight them off, and her mother and friends all get killed by General Grievous, and she's forced to flee for her life, since all of her people are basically slaughtered. She's brought to safety by the Mountain Clan, who offer her refuge, and overcome with anger and grief, Morgan becomes very vengeful. There's a group of clan members who are voicing doubt over the clan's pacifist ways being enough to protect them. And Morgan starts to kind of stoke those fears. Now, she's not doing it in a malicious way. She herself is just kind of doing it, because she's legitimately kind of vengeful and she wants to encourage this clan to fight back. And they take up some Night Sister weapons to fight back against the Separatist forces. But then the clan's leader's daughter, her name is Nolly, she gets killed in battle. And the clan leader intervenes by destroying the Separatist forces herself. And she voices her sadness that Elsbeth's path is basically set for her. She's overcome with vengeance, and they basically leave her to her vengeful ways. I'm assuming that this, the parts, with Dathomir are kind of fuzzy to me, but I would assume that this takes place, prior to the events of season 4 of the Clone Wars, because I do believe that it was established that the Separatists invaded, Dathomir, at some point off screen during the Clone Wars, so I would assume that this is bringing it to screen life. Do you believe that's correct, Riz?
That sounds correct to me. I mean, I have no reason to doubt that being correct. Yeah.
I do know that the Mountain Clan was established at one point in the. So, believe it or not, the first appearance of Dathomir ever was in a book called The Courtship of Princess Leia. It's a Legends novel that takes place 4 years after Return of a Jedi, and it's basically the legend story on how Han and Leia get married. And I do know that that was the first appearance of Dathomir, and it established the Night Sisters, and I do believe it established the Mountain Clan called. Now, it doesn't go into that much detail on those things. The Clone Wars series really fleshed out the Night Sisters a lot more than that book did, because the only thing the main part that the planet plays in that story is that Han wins it in a Sabacc game and tries to give it to Leia as a present so that he can win her over. I'm not a fan of that Legends novel, but that's a review for another time. But I did want to briefly establish that Easter egg. So the Mountain Clan is another part of the Dathomir lore that they bring over. I'm not sure about all the other Easter eggs. We might do a separate podcast for that, but that was one thing that I established. With that being said, Riz, what did we think about this episode?
I didn't hate it, but it was definitely a little bit more on the it was a bit more rushed than I wanted it to be. We didn't really see a lot of the Mountain Clan in the episode, prior to all this stuff. We didn't really get a lot of, it's hard for me to root for, or mourn the death of these people that died by the Separatist army when you don't really know their people, their culture, or anything really. I mean, I know a little bit about the Night Sisters from watching Clone Wars and the Ahsoka TV show, but they're always kind of generically, at least in my opinion, portrayed as evil. Yep. And I don't think that's really the case, because the Mountain Clan seems more in line with being peaceful and non-combative and generally nice people. And so I wish we had gotten a little bit more of that, and maybe we'll get something concerning the Mountain Clan in the future in the Mouse canon, but it was hard for me to really care about, their demise. And honestly, Morgan Elsbeth has always been a character that I didn't really ever care for. Even in the Ahsoka TV, so I didn't really care for her a lot.
Yeah, that's why I'm really glad to hear you say that, because in all honesty, obviously this is kind of meant to be like, the effect of like, they're kind of trying to do exactly what they did with Count Dooku, like try to flesh out her character a bit more, but I'm not going to say it completely falls flat, but Morgan Elsbeth, yeah, I'm really glad. Like, I was more interested in seeing Thrawn than I was, in, Ahsoka than I was seeing her, cause truth be told, and I can't believe I didn't say this in the Ahsoka series, but she left very little impact on me when I watched season 2 of The Mandalorian, to the point where I actually had to go on the Star Wars wiki to remember that she was in that episode, mainly because I'm so, like, starstruck with seeing Ahsoka in live action for the first time, but yeah, she doesn't really leave that much of an impact on me.
No, not at all. I mean, she's there. She had the role of like generic Night Sister villain, but she doesn't leave an impact because she doesn't get a lot of screen time to do anything there. And then by the time we get to the Ahsoka TV show, in my opinion, she's kind of left to do her own thing in the background because we have such amazing characters with Sin and Balin, and they're far more interesting. And then, of course, Thrawn. I mean, that's the main focus for the villain side in the Ahsoka TV show for me. So Morgan's just kind of there. And hell, even when she died, cool, okay. It didn't really mean a lot.
The one thing I'll give this episode, is that this is probably the first time in the series where the separatist forces actually come off as really quite intimidating, because when we see them in the prequel movies, the B1 battle droids and the super battle droids, like, they're mostly kind of seen as like joke soldiers, which naturally, because we're either seeing them go up against Jedi who can easily take them out with their lightsabers, or they're going up against a much more competent army that's just as well trained as they are in the clones. But to see them go up against, like, a much smaller group of people, like the Night Sisters, who may not necessarily be trained for combat and war, they genuinely look a lot more intimidating. I'll give them credit for that. This is the first time where the separatist army felt very threatening.
Yeah, definitely.
But I would probably give this, what are you going to give it out of 10?
I've been debating a 7 or an 8 for this one because while I didn't really care about Morgan as a character, it is still nice to see more of her origin story and where she comes from. Because, like I said, in the Mando and the Ahsoka TV show, all I know is generically she's an evil person. So to kind of see that, the Separatists wrecked her home, killed her people, and that kind of set her down the path to become who she is later in the universe. That's still nice, but I think I just don't personally care for Morgan, and I feel like other people probably will in the fandom. It's just not for me.
Yeah. So you said a 7?
Maybe 7 or 8. I'm still kind of like, eh. I'm thinking 7.5 to even it out.
I want to do a 7 for this one.
Yeah.
Okay, you want to move on to the next one?
The path of anger awaits us.
Yep. And that is the name of the episode, guys. The Path of Anger. So we fast forward way past the Clone Wars. It is now the dark times of the Empire. Morgan Elsbeth has since become the magistrate of the Corvus system. This is the system that, that Ahsoka and Din Djarin had to go through. Basically, Ahsoka was trying to get to Morgan Elsbeth in that episode, so this is kind of showing what she was doing on Corvus, going into a bit more depth. She has control over the whole world. She established control by promising local villagers a much more prosperous life within the Empire. She does a proposal for the TIE Defender ship. That's the same ship that Grand Admiral Thrawn was trying to push for all throughout Rebels. But the Empire reveals that they are only interested in Corvus for its natural resources. and the people of Corvus start voicing their frustrations with Elsbeth over her failure to deliver on her promises, and they engage in loud protests, which she doesn't care for. She gets attacked by the assassin Rook. This is a character who appeared in Rebels. He was sent by Captain Pelion. Captain Pelion, he's a character who, he's kind of so first of all, he originates from Origins. He was always Grand Admiral Thrawn's second in command in the Legends novels, and he plays a similar role here. This is his first on-screen appearance. His voice was heard in one episode of Rebels, and we saw a picture of him in one episode of The Mandalorian through a hologram, and he also apparently appears in the book Thrawn Treason. So he's playing a very similar role here as Thrawn's second in command. And, Pelion was offering to work with Elsbeth because he wanted to test Rook to see if she was capable of handling herself. And after Pelion departs, Elsbeth meets Admiral Thrawn, who voices admiration for her work and says she's needed to stop the growing rebellion. And Elsbeth reveals that she joined the Empire out of a desire to avenge the death of her people. And Thrawn accepts her proposal and offers her a portion of his fleet to help her in her mission on Corvus. And that's how the episode ends. So, what do we think about this one, Riz?
I honestly like this one a lot more because it gives me... So, again, Morgan here, I think she has a better role because now she's doing something interesting, and her involvement in the TIE Defender is something I didn't have on my bingo card for when I watched the season of Tales of the Empire. So that was cool to see. And the moment I saw the TIE Defender blueprints, I was like, Thrawn will come on screen anytime now.
Yep.
And then when I saw Rook, I was like, oh look, it's Rook. Thrawn's probably 2 feet away at this point, and there he is, 2 feet away. Also, to kind of add on to your Easter egg list there, Rook also appeared in Thrawn Alliances. I don't know if he's also in Treason, but he has some pretty entertaining scenes in Alliances. So
that's cool.
That's another small little Easter egg, like where else you can find him. So for this episode, I actually like it a lot more than the first one, because this is indirectly setting up her debut in the Mandalorian episode later on.
Yep.
But it's also setting up some more of the background of the TIE Defender program, which Thrawn had been championing. And if you read the Thrawn novels, you will know this is his baby. He wants it to happen. He doesn't want to see Project Stardust with the Death Star come to fruition.
Yep.
He wants the TIE Defender program. So to see him, come in and do his thing at the end, that's a very nice touch because it gives us an opportunity to get some more background on the circumstances of what we were seeing in Rebels and in the Thrawn novels. And, on one hand, it's like, why do I care who came up with the plan for the TIE Defender program? But it's still a nice touch to have that detail in the overarching story, and this fits in very well to the idea of what I think Star Wars Tales of is doing. Because, like I mentioned in the Tales of the Jedi podcast that came out 2 days ago, so if you haven't listened to that, go listen to it. And that's my first plug for our other work we've done.
Yeah.
But the Tales of series is meant to be supplemental information to fill in the gaps of things we don't know. So with Tales of the Jedi, it's giving us how Dooku descends into the dark side fully, and a little bit of like how Ahsoka joins the rebellion. But listen to the podcast for my thoughts on that part. But then in this one, we're seeing Morgan's origin, where she comes from originally, And then we're seeing the setup for the Mandalorian later on, because Corvus is where that episode takes place in season 2, and it's pretty nice to be able to tie it together like this.
Mm-hmm.
And I gotta say, just seeing Rook again makes me laugh because he is such a fun character. And there are things, Nathan, that I can't tell you because you haven't read Alliances, but when I saw
Dude.
when I saw Rook pop up here, all I could think was some of the early scenes in the Alliances book with Rook and some of the Imperials. It's quite amusing to me what he was doing and how he was harassing people. But yeah, that inspired some good feels for me about this episode.
Yeah, and Thrawn's appearance was also really great. Like I don't want to. I mean, I don't want to badmouth Rebels too much here because I do genuinely like Rebels, but I kind of like how Thrawn is animated a bit more here. This is more like the Clone Wars style animation. Thrawn looks a lot more intimidating. This is probably my best looking version of Thrawn because, like, I thought he was cool in Ahsoka too, but he kind of looks a little too much like. Well, a lot of people are saying he looks like Elon Musk, and my wife thinks that he looks a bit like the South Korean president. But yeah, this is probably the most intimidating I've seen of Thrawn on screen thus far. Just his way he's animated, and I mean Thrawn himself is a really great character. I mean, we both reviewed the original Thrawn novels, so anything that he's in, I automatically just really like, even if it is just for a couple of seconds.
Yeah, definitely. It was a nice bet.
I would probably give this one an 8.5, maybe a 9, but
I I was gonna go with an 8.5. I considered a 9 as well here, but my reason for not giving the 9 is I think the next episode is where I'll probably end up giving that 9, to be honest with you.
okay. I'll probably do the
Yeah.
8.5 then.
Yeah.
Alright, so now we move on to the Path of Hate. We're gonna fast forward some even more time, to the Galactic Civil War has passed and the New Republic is now in power. Now, from what I know, so if I remember correctly, I know that The Mandalorian season 2 takes place either 5 or 6 years after Return of a Jedi. So this would take place prior to the events of the episode where Din Djarin meets Ahsoka, but it's also after Return of a Jedi. So we can assume this is like maybe between 1 to 4 years, after Return of a Jedi. So the New Republic forces have arrived on Corvus. Corvus has now become run down and degraded under Elsbeth's imperial rule and neglect, and they try to petition Corvus for membership. The ambassador named Nadura, she tries to negotiate with Elsbeth to allow Corvus to join the New Republic, urging her to atone for her sins and take a fair trial, but Elsbeth naturally refuses. And immediately sets her forces on Nadura, sorry. I was thinking about another series. Elsbeth refuses, and she kills Nadura and destroys her ship, and her guards scorch the entire field around her. She basically reassures her authority over her people. Nadura dies, and it's revealed that to her friend Wing, and I'm going to talk about Wing in a second, that she sent a distress signal to Bo-Katan Kurz, the Mandalorian, but Elsbeth destroys the communicator before Wing can call her for help, and she just watches with just enjoyment as she sees the scorched world all around her. Now, what I was going to say about Wing, technically he appeared in the previous episode, but he was also in the that same Mandalorian episode, Chapter 13, The Jedi. He didn't really do much, but he was he basically becomes the governor after Morgan Elsbeth is overthrown. So again, like I said, I was a little too preoccupied with Ahsoka to really notice it, but I did look it up since, and yes, Wing did originally appear in live action in that Mandalorian episode. So yeah, what do we think about this one, Riz?
I thought it was pretty good, honestly. Like, it, we're seeing more of Morgan's personality, which is something I've been kind of wanting throughout. And it's nice to kind of see her in charge and ruling and how she's doing stuff. Unfortunately, Corvus is kind of run down and deprecate, but it is still nice to see how she does stuff. And the fact that it's set a little bit before Mandalorian lines up nicely with the timeline. I also think, like I mentioned in the last episode review, this really sets up like a direct sequel, Mandalorian season 2, when Ahsoka comes on screen, because when she sends that distress signal to Bo-Katan's the one that tells Mando, hey, if you want to find a Jedi, you might want to check out Corvus, and that's what leads him there.
Yep.
So I liked it. I just, I think this is a good way to end Morgan's story before we get to the Ahsoka TV show and the Mandalorian stuff. It gives us a nice little linear storyline to follow to say, her life was kind of uprooted. She lost her family and her friends and everything. And honestly, we can kind of blame General Grievous for the existence of Morgan in the story as like a significant character. Because if it wasn't for Grievous doing all that, she wouldn't be evil today.
But at the same time, as much as I like this, and as much as I like the ending with like Morgan Elsbeth kind of, looking with glee over like a destroyed town that she just completely scorched, which is obviously meant to be kind of showing she's come full circle because she was once part of a town that got completely destroyed and scorched by separatist forces. Granted, I don't want to give the negative review here because it probably wasn't their intention, but I don't want to say that this is on par with like the Count Dooku stuff, because with Count Dooku becoming a villain, he had understandable motivations and just got horribly misguided. Morgan Elsbeth always had her sights set on revenge to the point where I want to say that maybe the first episode implies that they want us to have some sympathy for her, but unlike Count Dooku, Morgan Elsbeth is just a straight up evil woman at this point, and it's not really easy. I really can't have sympathy for her in that regard.
Yeah, I can't either, and that's what I was kind of saying earlier. Is the reason I didn't like some of the Morgan story in this season is because I don't feel anything for her still. I understand where she came from. Like, intellectually, I know where she came from. I know what she went through. But that doesn't necessarily mean that I empathize or even really care about her, as mean as that might sound.
Mm-hmm.
But I do like the elements in the last two episodes, episode 2 and 3, with Thrawn and now with the New Republic forces and these different links into the rest of the canon. I mean, those are the things that I like the most, because Morgan, much like how she was in The Mandalorian as like a tool to help the story move along, and then she was kind of there in the background for Ahsoka to, again, be a tool to help tell the story. I'm viewing her as kind of like a tool to tell the story of the TIE Defender program's origin, and to also help us understand better what happened to Corvus prior to Mando. But as for Morgan herself, I mean, I have the same opinion of her as I did before. She's evil, she's mean.
Yep.
There's nothing about her that I'm really like, aw, you poor baby, I feel bad for you. Like with Dooku, I felt for him so much. And that just didn't happen here.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like, and this is a spoiler for the rest of this podcast, but it's almost like the people who are doing Tales of, they pick two characters, but they really do a fantastic job with one character, and an job on the other character. In season 1 for Jedi, it was Ahsoka. She was kind of the character because we already knew a lot about her, and we didn't really get a lot from her outside of the Practice Makes Perfect episode, I think it's called.
Yep.
Everything else was kind of like for her. But Dooku was amazing. Here, I think Morgan is the character that we follow, while Barriss Offee is the oh my god, what character that we're following. Sorry for the spoilers, but it's kind of true.
We can use that to transition into the next episode, but what do we want to give this one out of 10?
I've been thinking about it, and I know I originally said I want to give a 9, but I don't know if I'm going to give it a 9 here. I'm going to probably give it another 8.5.
Yeah, I'm going to give it an 8.
Okay.
Okay, now we can move on to the good stuff. Let's move on.
Hang on. And now the fun begins.
Yep. Alright, episode 4, Devoted. This episode opens up during the events of Order 66, actually. Barriss Offee. Barriss Offee, if you've seen the Clone Wars, you should know who Barriss Offee was. She started off as a background character that appears in Attack of the Clones with absolutely no lines. Then she gets really fleshed out in the Clone Wars animated series. She has been imprisoned for her crimes. For those who have not watched the Clone Wars, first of all, what are you doing with your lives? But moving past that, she basically became disillusioned with the Jedi and bombed a Jedi temple hangar, and she tried to frame Ahsoka for doing it, only to be found guilty. And she's been expelled from the Jedi Order, and she's been imprisoned for her crimes. And she can see the attack on the Jedi Temple from afar in her cell. The temple is on fire because Anakin and the 501st Legion with Sergeant Appo are currently attacking it. And shortly after it, with the Jedi have been wiped out, and the Empire is now establishing its control over the galaxy, and Offee gets approached by former Jedi Lynn Rakish. She is the fourth sister of the Inquisitors. This character originally appeared in the Kenobi series as one of the many Inquisitors that Obi-Wan encounters. Now, she doesn't really have any lines in there. She was just identified as the fourth sister, so this is the deepest characterization that we've gotten of her. This is the first time that her name is being established as Lynn Rakish. And she has made an offer in exchange for her freedom. She's taken to the Inquisitor's fortress on the planet Nur. That's in the Mustafar system. And this fortress has appeared multiple times. It originally appeared in the Jedi Fallen Order video game. I apologize for Riz, since I don't know if he's gotten that far, but yeah, that's kind of a minor spoiler. And
I know about it.
Okay. And it also appeared in the Kenobi series. And she, among other Force users, they meet the Grand Inquisitor. This character originally appeared in Rebels as the main antagonist of Season 1, and was also a minor antagonist in the Kenobi series. He announces that they'll begin training to become Inquisitors themselves and assist the new Emperor Palpatine in maintaining order throughout the galaxy. The following day, Offee is taken to begin her training with the Grand Inquisitor. And following her training, she and another recruit, Dante, are pitted against each other to determine who will join the Inquisitors. And Offee defeats Dante. She kills him as a result. And she is welcomed into the Inquisitors. The episode ends as Offee and her fellow Inquisitors, one of them being the character Marok, who appeared in Ahsoka, being among them, they get introduced to their new master, Darth Vader, and Offee declares, "Long live the Empire," as she puts on her mask with her voice now distorted. So yeah, what do we think about this one, Riz?
Okay. I'm going to start off by saying I watched Tales of the Empire last night, after I finished editing our 1-year anniversary of the Jedi Squadron podcast. And I was just blown away by this episode because of the detail they took to connect different things together. I mean, one thing that I always wondered about Barriss is what happened to her after Order 66? Did they kill her in the jail cell because she was a Jedi? And is that her fate? That's kind of lame. But then I find out here, no, she survived Order 66, and she was actually an Inquisitor, which is a fan theory I've read several times before, but I was like, if she was an Inquisitor, we would have seen her by now in Rebels or Ahsoka or something. Or Obi-Wan Kenobi, but we don't see her anywhere. And Tales of the Empire explains why, and I thought it was pretty awesome. And kind of my question back to you about Offee versus Dante in that moment where he dies at her hand. Do you really think that's self-defense, or do you maybe see that as her being seduced a little bit more by the dark side before things happen in episode 5 and 6?
Honestly, I originally thought that it was more self-defense, but the more I think about it, and I probably should have edited that out of the outline, I do believe that it's probably more her being slightly seduced by the dark side.
Yeah, because the reason I say that, the only reason I don't think it was self-defense, is she's using a Sith technique to kill people. She's using the Force Choke, which we first see in episode 4 of the movie series, and that's used by Vader, and it's subsequently used by every dark side user throughout. Never used by a Jedi, as far as I can tell, until Anakin, when Anakin's starting to turn, but at that point, Anakin's turned to the dark side, so does he really count as a light side user at that point? Not really.
Yeah.
So, I think Barriss is in the same boat as Anakin at the beginning of episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, where she's getting seduced by the dark side, and she's starting to use dark side techniques. And I'm not going to say she enjoyed it, because I saw her facial reaction after. By the way, I ended up watching the Barriss Offee stuff again this morning before the podcast, just because I wanted to make sure I had everything down packed. And I think on that second watch through, I can kind of feel her slightly questioning Dante's death. It's a very subtle facial thing with her. It's nothing like she says anything or she does anything, but I just get the sense that she doesn't feel good about it at the end of the day. But she did it to survive.
Yep.
Because Dante was going to kill her. No two ways about that.
Yeah, absolutely. No question.
Yeah. Like, Dante was probably the better pick to be Inquisitor, if I had to be honest with you.
But all I'm going to say about this is that, her becoming an Inquisitor, I mean, the trailers kind of spoiled it because we see her with the Grand Inquisitor, but I don't care because I absolutely loved this because, I mean, I remember once when, like, the Bad Batch was coming out, somebody suggested, like, Barriss Offee should come back as an Inquisitor, and that's when I just became obsessed with that idea. So to see her come back, but I'm glad, but the more I think about it, I'm glad that she didn't come back in the Bad Batch because then you would have to steal focus from our characters. So to have 3 episodes that revolve entirely around her is just perfect. So this was the perfect way to handle it.
Agreed. And the only thing that I kind of wish we had gotten in this episode, because spoilers, we don't see Vader again after this, is I wish Vader showed any kind of recognition to Barriss, because as you'll remember from the Clone Wars, Anakin was not very happy with Barriss at the end of all this, because she is the reason he lost his Padawan, who is more like a family member than, like, just a student. So, I was kind of hoping for a one-off line, or maybe, like, he would give her some, in my opinion, some well-deserved abuse for what she did to him. Because again, remember, at this point, it's Darth Vader. He has no problem being somebody who would deal out some harm to other people. So I could see very well him doing this for revenge. It's a very Sith-like thing to do, and they don't.
Yep.
But that's the only thing I wish we had gotten here.
Yeah.
Like, it kind of felt like Vader didn't recognize her, which is kind of weird because that scene is probably only a year from when Ahsoka left the Jedi Temple, I think.
Yeah, roughly, I would say.
I'm estimating a little bit, but, roughly a year after she left the temple is when this happens, and, Vader has so much anger and hate that I could see him doing something to be a dick to her, but he doesn't, and that's kind of surprising to me.
Yeah, I wish that they fleshed that out a bit more.
Yeah.
But I'm still going to give this one a 9 out of 10.
Oh, absolutely. This is a 9.
Yep. Anything else you want to say about this one?
No, let's move on.
Okay. Episode 5, Realization. So this takes place shortly after Offee has joined the Inquisitors, and she's sent on a mission with Fourth Sister to a rocky planet. The planet isn't named. When they arrive to the ruined planet, Offee shows sympathy to the people, but Fourth Sister insists that they're suffering due to the disloyalty to the Empire, and they're trying to find a Jedi that's been located on this planet, and Offee gets really disturbed when the Fourth Sister slaughters some of the innocent civilians for lying to her after she discovers the Jedi are there. She actually asks a kid, very nicely, if the Jedi is there, saying that, we're not going to hurt you. And then after the kid reveals the Jedi is there, the Fourth Sister is all like, oh, you lied to me? And then she kills a bunch of people, and she almost kills the kid before Offee stops her. And they eventually find the Jedi in the mountains. This is an unnamed Jedi. We don't know who she is. And Offee tries to urge her to surrender and turn herself in, saying like, hey, I understand, the Jedi have deceived you. You don't have to do this anymore. You can join us and you'll live a happier life. And the Jedi deactivates her lightsaber and she wants to surrender, but then Fourth Sister kills her and leaves her to die, declaring that the Jedi must be eradicated. And then Offee, realizing that the Inquisitors are not doing what she thought they were about to do, she turns on the Inquisitors. She pushes Fourth Sister off a cliff and vows that she'll save the Jedi. So yeah, that I'm not sure if this Jedi is dead or not, but Offee is going to try to help her, and that's how this episode ends. So what do we think about this one?
I kind of think he survived, and he's sent to the safe place um, that we have for the Jedi set up at this point in time, as we'll see in the next episode.
Yep.
Sorry for that spoiler, but it's coming. I mean, if you're listening to this podcast, you've either already seen Tales of the Empire and you're just listening to us talk about it, or you're looking for information about the TV show before you go watch it. In either case, you're going to have to find out at some point.
Yeah. Honestly, about that Jedi though, just to kind of go in, like, I'm cool with it being an unnamed Jedi, and this is just a nitpick, but I kind of wish that this could have been like us seeing the fate of like some Jedi who we know survived Order 66, but didn't, but we don't really know their fate. Like, for example, and granted, I kind of understand why Dave Filoni didn't do this because it would have conflicted with the continuity he previously said, but I would have loved to see it be Luminara Unduli, who, if you've watched Clone Wars, you'll know that Luminara Unduli was Barriss Offee's old master, and she actually survived the initial Order 66 before Rebels established that she was found by the Grand Inquisitor and killed. So I get why they didn't do it, but it would have been a lot better if, maybe Barriss Offee has an encounter with her old master and, she actually does die. And one other person that I probably would have liked to see, because we know that this person existed thanks to a line in the comics, but we don't know what his final fate is Oppo Rancisis. He's an alien Jedi. Riz, tell me if you remember this guy. He's like a green-yellow alien with white long hair and a beard, and he has like a tentacle instead of legs. He's a member of the Council in the Phantom Menace. I think in Attack of the Clones, but he was definitely in the Phantom Menace.
I haven't watched The Phantom Menace in quite some time, so no, I don't remember him.
Okay. Well, he's in the Clone Wars here and there too. But with that said, like, they established that he survived Order 66, so I would have liked to see what happened with him. But I mean, it's okay. I mean, at the end of the day, this is all about, Barriss Offee's character development, so I'm not going to complain too much.
Yeah, and so this episode is the first time I've ever felt real sympathy for Barriss Offee. If you count all of her appearances in the Clone Wars, in what she did to Ahsoka, and the previous episode, this is where I started feeling sympathy for her. Because I can see that while she was seduced by the dark side in episode 4, here in episode 5, Realization, she's still very much following some Jedi tenets of how to be. And I know that there's a throwaway line that Merrick said last time that you have to get rid of your Jedi training and feed your strength through your anger or whatever. But I can tell that she's still struggling to follow Merrick's instruction because she is still very compassionate. She still thinks that she's doing the right thing. She thinks that Vader and the Inquisitor group are there to do what the Jedi Order couldn't do. She's been disillusioned into thinking the work she's doing is the stuff that she was fighting for in the Clone Wars when she did all the stuff that she did. But in actuality, she's starting to question it now because she's starting to see signs of the Empire not taking care of the planet, the Empire allowing the Fourth Sister to kill people willy-nilly with no real, justification except for, oh, they need to be punished. These are things that are making her question everything. And when she sees Fourth Sister go and try and attack the Jedi and attempt to kill him, or maybe kill him, I don't know. I think that's the moment when she decides, okay, screw this noise. I'm not going to follow the Inquisitor path anymore. I'm going back to the Jedi way, as best you can.
Yep.
And this is a really strong episode for that reason. Just getting me to care about Barriss Offee, not an easy thing to do, because if you know me at all, you know I love Ahsoka. And you know I hate what happened to Ahsoka, because I wanted her and Anakin to stay together, even though that wasn't possible, given what, the original trilogy already set up for us. So, yeah, this is a very awesome episode.
Yeah, there's comments that I want to make, but I want to hold off until the next episode because I really just want to talk about Barriss Offee's fate here versus what her fate is in Legends. I'll talk about that a little bit later. But yeah, I really enjoyed this. It's great to see Barriss Offee get some redemption, and I think it's really important to see this come on after watching Tales of a Jedi and seeing those Count Dooku shorts that really establish that the Jedi have gotten a little bit more corrupt, and we're shown shades of that in Clone Wars, but it's really explored heavily in Tales of a Jedi. So to see all of that, and then to come in and see, how Barriss Offee is feeling, where, she was never evil. She just got disillusioned by the faults of the Jedi, which were legitimate faults. And in a lot of ways, she kind of suffered the same fate as Count Dooku, where now the part where it's kind of hard to sympathize with her entirely is when she ultimately tried to frame Ahsoka for doing what she did. But at the same time, seeing this and see her feel legitimate remorse is just super powerful stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's why I'm going to give this, honestly, I want to give, I know that you have a limit on 10s, Riz, but I don't.
This is a 10, dang it. Stop.
Yeah,
it's a 10.
I don't care.
This is a 10. I don't care either.
Yeah.
Okay, we're in agreement.
Yeah. All right. Now let's move on to the Way Out. This is at least 10 years after turning on the Inquisitors. Offee has become a healer on an ice planet. The planet is unnamed. Although I do like this element of her being a healer because there's a Clone Wars novel. I never read it in depth because it came out when I was a kid and it was a much longer novel that was meant for adults, but it revolves around Barriss Offee becoming a Jedi healer. So I like that little element, kind of softly canonizing some elements from Legends. She heals a child named Micah. She voices her regret over the dark path that she took and warns Micah's parents that because Micah is force sensitive, the Empire is going to pursue her. And unfortunately, they get discovered by Thorpe's sister. She sends her 2 guards away with Micah's family and confronts the Thorpe sister who arrived in search of Micah. And after getting past Offee, Thorpe's sister pursues Micah's family into the cave, but they successfully escape in Offee's ship with her guards, and she gets trapped in this endless maze in an ice cave, and she gets overcome with fear and frustration, and in rage, she stabs Offee in the chest, and Offee, so I have it written here that she dies, but we actually aren't sure, because what happens is that Thorpe's sister is begging her for a way out of the dark side that she's chosen. Like, she feels overcome with remorse, and she carries Offee's body out of the cave. So is Offee dead, or was she healed? We don't know. That's probably, I don't want to say frustrating, because I actually do legitimately like this ending and how it gives more character for the Thorpe sister, but yeah, we don't know if Offee is dead or if she is simply been severely injured, because as we found out in some recent stuff, getting stabbed by a lightsaber doesn't always mean that you're going to die. Reva Sabine. But yeah, that's how this episode ends. What do we think about this one?
I honestly love this episode a lot, because it gave me a couple of different headcanons that I'm going to talk about as we go through our discussion of this one.
Yeah.
But I'm going to start off by saying it's really nice to see her character go full circle from Jedi Padawan to disillusioned by the Jedi Order to temporarily an Inquisitor under the Sith Lords, back to being, I'm not going to call her a Jedi Knight, per se, because she didn't do the formal training, and I don't know how that would work in this context, but definitely a master of the Force, because she is extremely powerful in this episode. The way that she's just doing combat with the Force sister Lynn without actually using a lightsaber and dodging everything, that's like a Yoda level kind of thing to do. Or like at the very least, like one of the Grand Master Jedi. So she's definitely grown a lot in the Force in this 10 years, and she's definitely been going down that journey back to redemption. And I kind of think that she might be like, the reason I mentioned earlier that there might be like a hideaway place for the Jedi is because she does have a place to send Micah immediately. Like, she already has a game plan, meaning she's done this before multiple times. So I think there's more to the lore of what happens to the kids that the Inquisitors don't get to.
Yep.
And it might be where Luke gets some of his recruits in the future for his temple.
Yeah, along with that little underground path that was established that Quinlan Voss actually went down in the Kenobi series.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm going to say this right here for everyone who just, loves to complain about the new canon and say that, like, everything in the new canon sucks and Legends is far better. This is a perfect example of something that Legends is just inferior at, because, believe it or not, and apparently it's considered canon, in Legends, not new canon, Legends canon. Let me clarify that. So there was a deleted scene in Revenge of the Sith, which was unfinished, and you can see it on YouTube, but it looks terrible because because the CGI was never finished. But there was, during the Order 66 scene, we see Barriss Offee fighting on Felucia. That's the jungle planet that Ayla Secura gets killed on in Order 66. And the way that she goes out is that she gets shot by an ATTE, and then the ATTE stomps on her after killing her. And that was also shown in the comic adaptation of Revenge of the Sith. Now, here's the thing, as much as I kind of enjoyed seeing her get stomped on after what she did to Ahsoka after watching Clone Wars, that scene, apparently it's considered canon in Legends, and what she did in Clone Wars is considered Legends. And if you look at her Star Wars wiki page, the whole thing is, yeah, so she did this, but she found redemption, and she rejoined the Order, and she got a Padawan, and she got killed on Felucia. Like, what? Seriously? And I'm so happy because, because Disney's canonized some deleted scenes. I am so glad that they didn't just canonize that one and gave Barriss Offee more of like a fitting redemption arc to make her a better character. Because what they do with her in Legends is that's just stupid. It's stupid to just see her go out like a normal Jedi. And that's
Yeah, I really agree with that point because, yeah, they did a better job from what you're telling me about the Legends continuity for her.
Yeah, and I'm also glad. I thank George Lucas for deciding not to go through with that scene, because some of the other parts of that deleted scene are cool. Like, we see Luminara Unduli get shot down on Kashyyyk, and Yoda watches it. We see alternative takes of Plo Koon and Ki-Adi-Mundi's deaths. And Ayla Secura's death too. Now, granted, I tend to like the deaths that are actually shown in the movie a bit better than what we got in those deleted scenes. But yeah, if there's one scene that I'm really glad that George Lucas decided not to put into that movie, it was the scene where Barriss Offee got killed, because then we wouldn't have gotten this great, amazing character arc.
100% agreed. And so, are you ready for my headcanon that that I think could have been happening in the background that we don't see, but there's enough reason for me to think it's really happening?
Go ahead.
So, I think it'd be really cool to consider the fact that, Barriss Offee left the Inquisitors. She's been off on her own for 10 years or whatever, helping young Jedi get to a safe place. I think it'd be really cool and poetic if she was doing this in coordination with the early stages of the rebellion, and maybe in some kind of collaboration with Ahsoka, which would be a way for them to have met, hash out their differences. Because I don't think Ahsoka would hold a lot of anger towards her. I think she would just be like, yeah, you screwed me over, but I don't hold it against you because I'm a better person than that. And that, I think, would give Barriss Offee some more redemption to kind of work through. And it'd be a nice collaborative effort, I think, for Barriss and Ahsoka to have been collaborating after all the stuff they went through together in their early life. But that's just my own little fan theory. I don't have any reason to think this is really happening, aside from the fact that she is doing the underground Jedi rescue thing.
Yeah. But, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they find some way to make that work, because I know that technically Barriss Offee, well, okay, she originally appeared in a Legends novel, The Approaching Storm, which takes place between The Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones, and she originally appeared physically in Attack of the Clones, but Barriss Offee is one of those characters where she's Filoni's character, because, like, he reinvented her, so if he wants to do that with Barriss Offee, I'm all for that.
I mean, I'm all for it too. I think it'd be great if he did it, because it'd just be so poetic to see them back together.
Yep.
So, hey, Filoni, on the off chance that you're listening to the Jedi Squadron podcast, can you please make that happen at some point in the future? Like, I don't know, do something.
Yeah. Because like I said, I mean, much like how I consider Darth Maul your character, even though he originally appeared in The Phantom Menace, like I consider characters that didn't have much to do in the movies and then Dave Filoni took them and just reinvented them. Though, kind of like how the Batman animated series reinvented Mr. Freeze, even though he already existed. Like, those are Dave Filoni's characters, and I don't care what anybody else says. And Barriss Offee is one of those people.
Yeah, definitely. So Nate, I'm gonna be giving my second 10 here.
Yeah, I'm giving my second 10 as well.
Cool.
And I just kind of want to finish this off by saying that, like, you know, Tales of the Empire, I mean, I had the exact same experience watching Tales of a Jedi, where there were 3 shorts where they were fun, entertaining, you know, but not really the best. You know, it's just kind of nice to watch just, you know, some Star Wars stuff. But then you get those 3 shorts that revolve around a character who I have a bit more like, well, okay, it's a bit different here because I do genuinely care for Ahsoka while I don't care much for Morgan Elsbeth, so it's kind of unfair to say that the Ahsoka shorts are on the same level as the Morgan Elsbeth shorts, because I feel like the Ahsoka shorts are still a bit better just for that reason. But the Barriss Offee shorts were definitely a lot like the Count Dooku shorts for me, where they were just really entertaining. I absolutely enjoyed them. Still not sure what Barriss Offee's final fate is, but hey, I mean, I know that Dave Filoni is going to probably try to find a way to eventually give us an update on her final fate. So I'm looking forward to see that. But it's just great to see what happened to her after Order 66 at the very least. And you know, if it ends up that she died on that ice planet in Fourth Sister's arms, I can live with that because ultimately she atoned for what she did and she was able to go out a hero after the terrible things that she does. And I think that's a fitting end. So if Dave Filoni does come out later at a con and say, Barriss Offee died there, wouldn't mind. But I also wouldn't mind if he brought her back. And I like how he kind of keeps that open-ended. Because now I can look forward to seeing potentially if she'll come back again.
Agreed. And I'm the same way. I don't mind if she died here because her story ended very well. And I wouldn't mind her coming back either at some point in the future somehow. I mean, it's Star Wars. People come back all the time when they shouldn't be able to. Looking at you, Darth Maul.
Yeah, but Darth Maul's return was still awesome.
Yeah. But no, I thought while Tales of the Empire started kind of weak with the Morgan Elsbeth stuff, it ended so freaking well with the Barriss Offee stuff.
Yep. And and overall, I would say that I really enjoyed Tales of the Empire. It gave me, it gave me exactly what I was hoping for. And hey Disney, could you've got any more of these Tales of series? Because I would definitely love to see more of them because these are great.
Can we get a Tales of the Clones? That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, maybe see some stories. I want to see some like Tales of Clones revolving around clones that we know but didn't get much depth in the Clone Wars, like Ahsoka's Commander Bly or Ki-Adi-Mundi's Commander Bakara. I really want to see that, but
yeah,
hey,
same.
But we'll get there when we get there. They're probably going to release another one in 2026, given the rate that they're going.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to seeing that.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And overall, I would probably give this whole season. I mean, I don't think the Morgan Elsbeth stuff is enough to like really hurt the grade. So I want to give the overall season a 9 out of 10.
Yeah, I'm going with a 9 because while Morgan's really weak, Barriss carried so hard that I can't go below a 9 for that.
Yeah.
I know some critics out there have already come out and said that this season is very weak compared to the last one, but I point you back to Barriss Offee and ask you again, are you certain about that? Because I don't think you know what you're talking about.
I mean, I can sympathize with that. Like, maybe you don't find Morgan Elsbeth stuff great, but if you're gonna sit there and tell me that like Barriss Offee stuff is terrible, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
I don't know what you're smoking.
Whatever you're smoking, I would like some, please.
Yeah, but with that said, anything else you want to say, Riz?
No, I think I've said my piece.
All right, cool. So we want to thank everybody for joining us over these last couple of podcasts. We've been doing this for now officially over a year, and we look forward to the many more years that we're going to be able to bring you content. Some future content we're going to be taking a look at. We're going to be starting on the prequel films very soon, and we are also going to be doing a Bad Batch Season 3. We've already finished it, and we'll be getting started on that very soon. And we're also not sure when we're going to quite start, but we will get on that very soon. Perhaps maybe even while we're reviewing the prequels, we are going to be reviewing all seasons of the Clone Wars, and we hope you guys will join us for that. And with all that said, we are the Jedi Squadron podcast, and we'll see you next time, but we're about to enter hyperspace, so bye for now. If you enjoy us here on the Jedi Squadron, then please consider checking out our other content, including the Animated Classified podcast and the Toku Secrets podcast, which you can find on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, or on our website, animesecrets.org. And if you have anything that you would like for us to review that hasn't already been covered here on the Squadron, feel free to leave any commentary, whether it be in the YouTube comments down below or by reaching out to us personally on our website. Also, please follow us on our social media pages, Anime Secrets, on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram to keep up with our content as we post it. If you're listening to us on Spotify or iTunes, we thank you so much and ask you to please leave us a rating out of 5 stars. If you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed, like the video, and leave any comments down below that you may give in your commentary or stuff you want us to review, and so on and so forth, and we will give your commentary a shout out on the Squadron, as we absolutely love to give our fans the shout outs that they deserve. With all that said, we thank you so much for listening to us here on the Jedi Squadron podcast, and we will see you next time for our next adventure through the amazing world of Star Wars. But until that time, the Squadron is preparing to enter hyperspace once again, so you all stay safe, we love you, and may the Force be with you.